Good evening and welcome to Behind the Headlines. My name is Timothy Nyangweso. Today we focus on urbanization, its opportunities and its challenges, especially looking at the story of the people that were evicted from the Lubigi in Nansana and their plight after that. After 30, 40 years of being there and they were evicted, what more can we do about urbanization? The growth of people moving from the rural areas to the urban areas or the city centers is 5.8%. It is highest in Africa because the global set is 1.8%. The deficit of housing in this country is 2.4 million. And of that, 48.3% live in substandard or what we call informal houses. Why isn't urbanization taking trend in all these countries, in all the cities here? But a few years ago, 14 cities were earmarked to be able to have this happen as a pilot. $150 million was set aside. Government of Uganda gave $10 million to that. It ended in 2018. Have we been able to see the fruits of that money? Can Ugandans feel it in the social services or access to them? Or are the cities we have gems or burdens? That's the biggest conversation we have today. You can be part of the show. Join us on YouTube. Let us know what you think, where you are. Because these 14 cities that were earmarked are in the north, in the Karamoja region, in the east, southwest, and those 14 cities are running today, but what do they look like? Join us on YouTube, let us know what you think, but also go to our X handle there, drop your comment there, hashtag UBC Behind the Headlines, or the number 0709 60 25 92. Text or WhatsApp there. So let's meet the panel. On my immediate left, she's always here, Professor Sarah Sally, the Dean at the School of Women and Gender Affairs at Makerere University. Good evening, Professor.
Good evening, Timothy, and good evening, our viewers.
And I am glad this topic has come. Well, we're both here. It's something you've hinted on in a few of our conversations there. Next to Professor is making his maiden appearance here on our show, Daniel Muhumza Nwawine, who is the Head of Public and Corporate Affairs at KCCA. Good evening, sir.
A good evening to you, Timothy, and a good evening to our viewers.
And it's good to have you because I know this is your maiden, but also thank you for coming in on short notice.
Pleasure.
Next to Daniel is a lecturer at Makerere University, not just a lecturer at Makerere University, but also Derek Muhwezi, a lecturer at Makerere University, and the president of Uganda National Urban Forum. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Timothy. Good evening, viewers. I'm glad to be here to participate in this show.
Thank you for also agreeing to our invite and also being here for your first time.
Thank you.
Next to him is the mayor of Hoima City and the dean of the city mayors, Mr. Brian Kaboyo. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Timothy, and good evening, viewers, and I'm very happy to be here tonight.
The ministry that is in charge of how we live or how we sustain ourselves in this country, the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, has sent us the commissioner in charge of urban development, Pade Joseph Walter. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Timothy, and good evening, our viewers.
It's good to have you, gentlemen. Thank you very much for honoring our invite. And Professor, it's good to have you. But I think it's better that we start with the ministry there to be able to hear what state we're in. It's 10 years since this program ended. What do these 14 cities look like, and what are the people anticipating for?
Yes, thank you, Timothy, and our viewers. You have given a very good background to urbanization. Yes, urbanization in this country is spreading like a bushfire. Actually, in some circles, they are saying urbanization is a revolution, and very difficult to stop.
Those are very dangerous words to use, but
but for this specific engagement, not beyond this. Yes, now having realized that the country was urbanizing rapidly, government made a decision to restructure government ministries. That was way back in 2006, where the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development was created The Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development was not in existence until 2006. We began operations 2008. So you can see how new the ministry is. Now, when the ministry was established, one of the major things we embarked on was focusing on the policy framework, where we came up with the national urban policy for this country. This country has got a national urban policy. Now, in addition to that, we realized that our towns needed very, very urgent attention in terms of infrastructure, in terms of planning, in terms of environment, among others. So we designed a specific program. That's the USMID program, the Uganda Support to Municipal Infrastructure Development Project. The focus initially was 13 municipalities. Our target at that time was purely municipalities. And this country had only 13 municipalities at that time. The 14th municipality was brought on board. Hoima was the 14th municipality at that time because of the special attention government was putting to Hoima, especially due to the oil and its effects to Hoima and the environment therein. So the 14th municipality came on board. This project, the focus when we began was mainly looking at institutional strengthening, to strengthen the capacity of these municipalities to be able to render services.
Mr. Commissioner, let me jump in just there.
Yeah.
Hoima, we understand the rationale was basically oil.
Yeah.
These other 13, what feasibility informed you going to them to sink this money in them to get them from cities? And what was the really opportunity and objective there?
Yeah, what happened at that time, you know, when you look at the hierarchy of urban councils in this country, we had one city and 13 municipalities. Now one city, Kampala, was being catered for under the KIDIP project. We had the project that was supporting the Kampala Institutional Development Project. Now below Kampala, you could come to the municipalities. And we all know that the challenges for these municipalities, for these urban areas, arise based on their hierarchy of development. So at that time, we focused specifically, we mainly focused on the municipalities. Yes, we mainly focused on municipalities. So we didn't need to do any feasibility. We just said the focus now should be to look at the next hierarchy of urban centers, which was municipalities at that time. And Uganda had only 13 without Hoima. Hoima actually was elevated to a municipality, like we have said, due to the oil. So there were no specific studies carried out. But when the project began, we did a lot of studies within these municipalities to identify specific areas of focus. We did a number of studies specific to these municipalities. For instance, when you go to Hoima, we had to do our analysis to find out what kind of support does Hoima need, where are the challenges. And throughout the implementation of the program, we were doing annual assessments. After every year, we do an assessment to gauge how they are getting on, and that assessment to determine how much resources they would get, because we have been implementing this program through a funding instrument of the World Bank called Program for Results.
So what has been the performance, lastly, what has performance? It's 10 years after this program has ended. We're now in 2024. What is the performance and what does it look like currently?
Oh, I wish you had the opportunity to look at these cities. Actually, we have been able to have very well documented information of these cities and municipalities before and after the project. We have been able to cover at least over 200 kilometers of road network in all of these municipalities. We have built a number of markets, bus terminals, in addition to capacity building. And when we are looking at capacity building, the focus has mainly been institutional strengthening rather than focusing on individuals.
Okay.
What do I mean here? When we go, for instance, to a city like Lira, we want to make sure the working environment for staff in Lira is okay in terms of the computers, the specialized equipment they need, like in terms of planning, survey, equipment, among others, rather than focusing on training. Of course, some programs, when you are talking of capacity building, people think it should be training, going to school. You will be developing an individual, but here, when we improve on the working condition of the institution, even if an individual leaves, another individual will come get good office, computers to execute their jobs. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Let me come to the mayor. Brian, when you hear what is being talked about, yours being the 14th city, famously now called the oil city there, a lot of oil, a lot of roads being made in that direction, is this translating to the people? In terms of social services, economic growth, is that what is happening?
Thank you, Timothy. First of all, I want to appreciate for inviting me here, and also I want to send my greetings to the people of Hoima City who made me to be here. But I can say that indeed, the way the commissioner said, this has come out to be a reality. First of all, when you look at how Hoima City was, because at that time, in 2011, I was a youth leader in the city, and the project started about 2013.
Yeah, 2013.
2013.
14,
yeah, 2013, 2014. If you project how Hoima City was then and how it is now, you can really see there's a much difference. Thanks to the oil and the leadership of this country and the president, that they considered the Hoima City then, which was a municipal, to be, because you look at the 13, they have been municipals for many years, and Hoima just became a municipality in 2010, and just after 10 years, we are a city. But when you look at the processes and advantages, we have really grown. I was trying to look at how the business have grown. Where the roads have been worked on, the businesses have grown. And when you look at, I was just looking at analyzing when I came in as a mayor in 2021, when you look at our revenue, despite the COVID, it was about 1.2 billion revenue, local revenue. When you look at last financial year, it was about 1.4 billion. And when you look at this current financial year, we are going to 2 billion. Meaning, this infrastructure, which is coming in place, has growth attached to it. Of course, we also appreciate we have been having another project running, which is helping us, which is DRM for the domestic revenue for development, funded by USAID, to help the 10 cities and the Uganda Revenue Authority to grow their revenue. But where they did the property roll, revalued all our property, but you see that the growth and the development with the infrastructure is bringing in this kind of revenue into the cities. When you look at the projection, if you go back 2013, 2014, I'm very sure you will see that we were so much lower, and when you look at now, when you're going to hit 2 billion. despite the challenges of having human resource as a challenge, enforcement as a problem, and others. But you see, equally all other 10 cities and all other 12 municipalities who are participating in this USMID program under the Ministry of Land. So indeed, there has been a lot of growth, both in terms of infrastructure, in terms of the value of the properties, but also it's also seen in terms of revenue, which is coming into the cities.
What challenges does that present? Because we still have people moving from Hoima coming to Kampala. What challenges is this? Infrastructure, growth in development, revenue that is growing. What new challenges are emerging, and how do you plan to deal with them?
I want to say the challenges they are when we're implementing. But when you look at the way the commissioner said, urbanization, people coming into it, it is a revolution where you can't stop. Even in Hoima city itself, the growth in the numbers in the population is also, we are seeing it, and equally in all other cities. But only challenge is if we don't plan well, most especially the physical planning, and also to have a budget for physical planning, but also try to have the revenues and the human resource we need. It is a challenge because we fail to implement and make sure we avoid the challenges, maybe because the cities were created to reduce the pressure on Kampala. But we also need to plan much better to avoid the challenges Kampala went through and or is going through because of urbanization, planning, because you find most especially it comes with the physical planning and the road infrastructure, where people don't tend to look at a road as an important infrastructure and tend to want to consume all the plot they have. So basically it is about the physical planning and how we plan for the cities. So we must make sure we have the budget. That's one of the challenges we have, and all other cities we have. We must make sure we have the human resource. We need the enforcement team, we need everyone. When you look at, I will give an example of Hoima City. It is about 228 square kilometers. And originally as a municipality, it had only one physical planner. So, meaning that to be effective with one physical planner and minus enforcement, who are supposed to guide the development into the city, it becomes a challenge. That's one of the biggest challenges the cities are facing. So we need to make sure the budgets are realized. Actually, I would say that as cities, ever since we elevated from municipalities, the budget has not corresponded to the new status. The only advantage we have had as the new cities is the USMID program. So that's one of the biggest challenges, is the budget, to make sure that the new status we have got is followed by the budget support to make sure we implement everything according to how it's supposed to be.
My last question before I come to Mr. Mwezi. One of the objectives of Uganda, that program there, was to make sure that the towns own their own resources, as in you raise your own resources. One, has it enabled that the services have gone closer to the people? And two, what is the ratio of the administration vis-a-vis the resources? Because that's also an added burden to the people that are there. You have a mayor, you have a town clerk, you have all this manpower of administration and still need to be paid.
What I could say is, apart from the political leaders, also they are very small when you look at the numbers. But when you look at the structure of the manpower who's supposed to be in the city, we are like about 35%. That means the staff are overstretched. And when you look at what they're supposed to do, that means we can't 100% perform the duties. So I believe the numbers or the human resource doesn't affect. Even if we had it, that means we would perform much better which is not the case. Although the ministry and public service put up the structure of the cities, and some have tried to recruit, and we are continuously recruiting, we are not yet there. So it's not a burden. Actually, to us, we believe, as because I'm the Dean of the City Mayors, and we believe that once we have the right numbers of staff, then we shall effectively be able to manage and provide the services the city needs. Because there are many challenges, because when you look at, for example, we have the KCC person here. In the revenue department, you find they have about over 100, including enforcement. I don't know whether I'm lying, but when we were trying to compare notes, and when you come to the 10 new cities, you find that we have about 5 or 4, and the enforcement is also not there. So we can't effectively provide the service and also be able to create the trade order and also manage the other challenges which come in if we don't have the right human resource. So it's not a burden, but we really need it, and we need to have that wage bill provided to make sure that we effectively run and provide the services which are needed from the cities.
Mr. Mwezi, you both as a lecturer, but also as a person that is elderly compared to the panel that is here, when you look at, that was all out of respect. When you look at the urbanization, the moving of young people, and the program that was here 6 years ago, ended 2018, was part of NDP2, and then when you look at it, are we on the right track? Where are we missing it? Where's the mismatch for us? Where's the linkage for this to happen?
Thank you, Timothy, for this opportunity. Before I say anything, I want to congratulate one of my sons. He graduated today with a Bachelor of Information Technology in Canada. So congratulations.
Congratulations.
As Commissioner has said, the urbanization process, the growth of urban centers, is like a whirlwind. You cannot stop it, and but you can try to take charge depending on the circumstances in your country, depending on, for example, the human resource capacity that you have in the country, depending on the resource envelope that you have in the country, depending even on the politics of the country. So it's quite a complicated, I can call it an equation. I wouldn't want to complicate words here. I could call it an equation which has so many components in it. So if you look at our country, I wouldn't want to, normally, even when I'm telling my students, I tend to believe that we are somehow on the right track. We are not yet there, but we are somehow on the right track.
How are we on the right track?
Because I'm also a teacher of the history of urbanization. And because of that, I tend to look at, for example, where Europe was at some time in history and where we are now, and then somehow tend to be positive that there is a change that is taking place in the country. Because, for example, if the middle class is growing, then that is likely to bring about a change as far as the way our urban centers are growing. And I wouldn't want to look at negativity. I'm not a negative person also as a person. The youth are going to continue coming into our urban areas. The most important thing is whether we are prepared for their coming or not. The worst scenario is that in our countries, urbanization is taking place without industrialization. Migrations are taking place from rural areas to urban areas without mechanization of agriculture. So the rural area is not any better, neither is the urban area providing the opportunities that the migrants are seeing. You have given an example that, for example, Hoima people are still coming to Kampala. And yet there is Hoima city. Why? They still see slightly more opportunities in Kampala, which are not yet there in Hoima, which are not yet there in Mbale, which are not yet there in Guru, which are not yet there in Arua. And at times, and those opportunities at times are imaginary. They are not necessarily there, but they are imaginary. There is electricity, there is water, there are jobs, which at times are not there. So, Timothy, we should accept the things the way they are growing, but we need to come out strongly as a country and take certain particular decisions. Among them, for example, things to do with staffing that the mayor is talking about. For example, as a trainer of urban planners, the way you talk about a doctor-patient ratio, a teacher-pupil ratio, there are ratios to do with urban planners, for example. I would expect for every 100,000 people to be, there should be a physical planner. But Hoima City has only one physical planner, maybe two. So how does that relate to the ratio? KCC, I don't know how many physical planners it has, vis-a-vis the population it has. So how do you expect it to handle the urban growth rates that we have when it is not fully staffed? And to you, the impression I got was as if cities are fully staffed. But the truth is that, as the mayor Hoima said, 30%, 35%, maximum 40% staffing levels. And I think that's not good.
And when you look at these cities, because a study was still done by the same ministry there, and showing, you know, they're not growing as fast as they would desire them to be. The objectives that were put on paper don't seem to be coming through there. What are we doing wrong? How can we go about it? What can we do better?
But remember, the cities or urban centers generally are not grown by government. It's something at times we tend to forget. The engine of growth of an urban center is the private sector, is the people themselves. So it's them that we are supposed to support, be there with incentives, with, different, there are quite a number of things that we need to think about doing for the private sector for them to be able to push the growth of cities. The best the government can do is infrastructure. Take an example. I'm a physical planner. I prepare a neighborhood plan. I don't expect the government to come up and set up the buildings, the residential houses. It's the private sector meant to do that. But what am I doing as a government to support the private sector to be able to put up this residential neighborhood? Is where the loopholes may be.
Thank you very much. Daniel, coming to you, you are the face of the country.
And again, yes. Mr. Timothy, there are three perspectives of looking at a city. One, I can look at a city in terms of the present. I can also look at a city from the retrospective point of view. I look at Hoima from the past and say, okay, Hoima now qualifies. If I look at the past, I look at the present, Hoima now qualifies to be what? To be a city. But I can also look at, like now, what I believe from my perspective, that we gave out these 10 cities, 14 cities, I believe from the prospective point of view. I believe that it's like you are awakening Hoima, you are awakening Mbarara, you are awakening Guru, and telling them that, yes, maybe you were not yet supposed to be a city, but now you're a city, work towards becoming a real city. I also want to take up that perspective, normally in the way I look at how these cities come up.
Thank you very much. We appreciate. Daniel, coming to you, as the face of the country, you have been what Hoima has benchmarked on, cities around benchmark on you, but you seem to have put in the reverse gear in how things are happening. You have the biggest slums, your low-lying swamp areas are being encroached, the industrial areas that were designated, the green parks in there that were designated. What is happening that permanent, as the professor has said, permanently repairing roads, patching roads to be exact? What has happened to Kampala that should be the pinnacle of everyone looking at, that it seems to have stalled or taken a back seat?
Thank you. Everyone has looked here now.
Yes.
I wish to Professor's class, especially the aspect of positivity and the lenses in which he sees cities. If we were to put Kampala in perspective, by day, Kampala has 5 million people. The population of this country is approximately 50 million. So if these 10 fingers are Uganda, this is Kampala. So 10% of the urban population transcends onto this small piece called Kampala. And by night, the residents as at 2020 were 1.7 million. Today, and we anticipate them to be 3.5 million people by 2030. So, residents vis-a-vis the transient population, you look at, and that's when you weigh the pressure that is coming onto Kampala, the perceived opportunity. Yes, this is the hub of opportunity in the mind of all Ugandans. The dream of all Ugandans is, if I go to Kampala, I'll make it. So that comes on to the administration of KCCA. However, there are opportunities in this, and the challenges, we shall talk about them later, because the topic of today is opportunities and challenges. I want us to look at the opportunity in this. The urbanization is a plus for this city because it gives us an opportunity to grow. Part of our strategic plan as a city is economic development, and we are now running a smart city campaign whereby infrastructure, people well-being, and leveraging on technology are our pillars. The more people that are coming into the city, it has given us an opportunity to market and grow or contribute to the growth of this country to the extent that 65% of the GDP is generated from space. We have been talking about the construction. Professor talked about the two roundabouts.
Disturbing us in the morning.
The inconvenience of getting into Makerere and Malawi. This is part of the overall development. We are addressing the challenge of mobility of the 5 million people coming into the city. And because of that, we are having infrastructure development. We have the opportunity that because of the pressure here, all eyes are on us, and it gives us the chance to grow. When NAM came, for example, during NAM, we had over 35 kilometers of road that were constructed. We are having the focus on Kampala, where we have the Kampala City Roads Rehabilitation Project. Over 80 kilometers of road are being constructed. We have the GKMA, Greater Kampala Metropolitan Area Project. This is funded by the World Bank, and over 80 kilometers of road are going to be constructed. Now, the huge constructions that are taking place in the city, in anticipation or in contribution to the development that is ahead, because these construction sites are going to lead into a better city. And that is part of the urbanization. So the people are coming in, they are on the construction sites, they are coming in, they are working on the roads, and the pressure we have here is a trigger to further development. One of the other opportunities we have seen is that if you look at the schools in Kampala, and I'm looking at this in the context of Kampala, not the country, because I'm representing Kampala here. We have health centers that have graduated to referral hospitals, the Chirudus. The Chirudus were part of the city infrastructure. They were part of the city assets. But we managed them so well that the central government took them up. But we also have the 9 health centers that handle over 10,000 patients per month. If you go down to Kisenyi Health Center, for example, it has the capacity of more than a regional referral hospital. And that is being manned by Kampala. This is part of the Kampala that we don't see. The Kampala that we see is on the roads. But the Kampala in the social services, the Kampala that you see is on the roundabout. But there's a Kampala in the hospitals. We have 2,200 schools in this space, Kampala, of which 78 primary schools are managed directly by KCC. Those are 78 primary schools. 22 secondary schools are manned by.
What is the quality of the service from these social services you're talking about?
Our health centers, Kawara and Kisenyi, have gotten Ministry of Health Awards, Service Excellency Awards. The pressure on our hospitals is not only for people from within Kampala, but the greater Kampala metropolitan area. And the quality of the services, if you look at the triage, when you go to the triage of our hospitals or health centers, you'll find the data of the patients. Some of their residences are as far as Arua. They come to Kampala because we have deliberately ensured services in there are stellar. So the Kampala we look at on the road infrastructure, and the Kampala we look at in the social services, where we should focus most of our eyes, because the infrastructure is being worked upon. Those are two different, and I would implore our professor here. You know, to the roundabout, because it's part of the growth. But also,
growth
look at the education. In Makerere, we have worked on some of the roads.
Yes, you've done well.
We've done the roads inside Makerere. But that is not being talked about. We have worked on the roads in Chamber University. That is not being talked about. We have lit moves.
Yes.
And now we are working on the area around Naka. We closed recently because we want to put up a bridge, a better bridge to have a wider carriage of vehicles across the railway, and all that is not being talked about. So I want us to look at those as opportunities of the city. And everything that we look at is a challenge. At City Hall, we have chosen to look at it as an opportunity to grow
Okay.
the face of the city.
Thank you. Yes.
Professor, can I supplement something on Kampala? You know, another challenge that Kampala has been having for a long time has been that Kampala city has been planning on its own. Mukono has been planning on its own. Wakiso on its own. And yet, all of the problems that are faced here in Kampala are actually imported. Problems come in. But now, under that arrangement of the Greater Kampala Urban Development Program, these people sit together in one room, plan. You are no longer going to have dead roads. Initially, you could get a well-done road. When you reach the boundary of Kampala, that road disappears. But now they are planning together. Those roads will continue, and I'm very sure the aspect of traffic jam, actually with the time, will be handled.
And if I may,
Lastly, Daniel.
yes, if I may, if you look at the Suna roads, they are coming in from Maxim Bisawagabu, Suna 1 and Suna 2, into Kampala. Bunamwaya, off the KCCA budget, we took the Bunamwaya road from Rubaga up to
Kajans.
Kajans.
Kajans, yes.
When you look at the Kulambiro Ring Road, it has an offering into Nigeria. So our works are now traversing into the neighbors where we are importing most of the traffic jam and most of the pressure onto the city.
Thank you very much. Professor, very good submissions there.
Yeah.
But you, as a professor, but also as a person who does social sciences, when you look at our population, we're waiting for the statistics and the data from you, boss, to be able to inform us on where we're going. But if they say 5.8 are moving annually in this country, we are 4 times or 5 times more than the global statistic there. What is the picture of urbanization in your view, looking at our cities, looking at the whole country?
Yes, thank you very much, Timothy. I think for me, it's not a position, an issue to be worried about for one reason. And someone here has talked about the history of cities. That's just the nature of things. We've had a city where, a country where the government has invested a lot in education, including rural education. Now, the statistics that were done about the Zimbabwean farms in the 1980s revealed that 4 years of education, just 4 years of education, was enough to push people off the farm. And here they were tracking the original farming communities in Zimbabwe who were white farmers. So even if their businesses their farms were being run on a business model as family enterprises, the moment their children got education, including the children of the farm workers, they never looked back to the farm as their destiny. So that was enough in the late 80s, 90s to confirm that the moment you give people education, those people will not go back to the land. They will look elsewhere. So in 1996, this country embarked on universal primary education. The moment that happened, it is not fair for us to imagine people will not move. The youth will move, and that's why we are concerned, that the youth are moving. The youth must move. As Dr. Muhwezi said, world over, that is how cities develop. That people get a push factor, and the use of push factors are greater economic opportunities. It is industrialization, it is modernization, and education, in that order. So once people then get that push factor, Of course, it comes with things like markets. They have to go and seek for work in the industries and factories. And that is how the whole world has gone. So what is challenging us in Uganda is that they push, people are leaving to go and seek opportunities. But the opportunities in the cities are not growing as fast as the population that's arriving. So currently our population is around 30%, 11 million vis-a-vis 34 million in rural areas. So that means we should be growing at that pace. And I think it's 5.95% per year. But unfortunately, our economy is not catching up. So it's one thing to say the city, of course, I know we don't have the capacity to implement our city development plans. Or we do selective implementation, and that then creates a challenge of what the members were saying, that you don't have enough workers and what to implement. But the drivers to urbanization and cities is not actual administrative and institutional frameworks. Those come as number 10. Before that are 9 things. And you remember when these 10 cities were being zoned, part of the criteria the Uganda government used were having 300,000 people per square kilometer, capacity to sustain, to generate revenue, capacity to sustain services, and all of that. So that talks to money, okay? So if you do not have the money to do, or you cannot raise enough revenue to do the things you're supposed to be doing, then it creates a challenge for you to be able to provide. So even if you got 10 urban planners and you got buildings in terms of, I mean, even if you had all the civil servants you want in a district, if you don't have the capacity to generate revenue and you don't have the capacity to deliver services, even with a high population, it will be a problem. And since we're in Uganda, we just need to look at what it is that is growing. If you've taken the Gulu Highway in the night, sometimes we do that in the night, there are places which are now beginning not to sleep, places like Mijera.
Yes.
So because of lighting, Mijera works throughout the night, okay? Places like Weyali, because of lighting. So these are hubs that are going to grow into cities in the future. So it is not just about, okay, I have pronounced you city status today and whatever. There are other things which fail. So the challenges we are seeing with cities in this country communicate the challenges of our slow economic growth, okay? And I will give you a small example. I had my senior 6 vacation in Mbala, and by that time we were working in the district tax offices, the municipality council. And I remember at that time there was a man, I think he had migrated from Toro, and he was working in Mbale market, and one of the things he would do is push a wheelbarrow to help transport goods. And I'm talking about him because I interacted with him closely. Later on, I come to university, I finish, I begin working, I rent space on Mawanda Road, and I find the same man in Kalere Market, but still pushing the wheelbarrow. So I was asking, so why did you move? And he said it was no longer profitable to push the wheelbarrow in Mbale. So I have to push it in Kampala. That is a small person, but the economic opportunities is very, very clear. The other thing is when we used to do a lot of research, I know now it's improving, but when we used to do research up country, first of all, when we were younger, many of us here and elsewhere who were born in civil servant families worked in different districts, and the schools and the facilities were fairly comparable. So people would move because there were opportunities in those areas. And so you'd have people even owning private cars in those areas. Now, in the early 2000s, and late 90s, you'd go to these districts and you'd find the only cars you'd find at a district, or you'd stand on a road in the district, in the town, would be government, the double cabins of local government, okay? And someone made a joke that actually you have traffic jam in Kampala because all the cars being imported into Uganda are being imported for Kampala roads. Why? Because there's nothing much happening elsewhere, okay? So there's no crisis of, I know we have to improve services to cater for the younger people, but it is no harm people move. By the way, people are not dummies. People will move where they can identify economic opportunities. So even if you pronounce Hoima as a city status, Even if you pronounce Mbale or Jinja, by the way, Mbale and Jinja are now having traffic jam. Maybe the economic opportunities have improved. But, but if you just pronounce them, people will come from either Bududa or they'll come from Chikuba, not go to Hoimombali. They'll go to Kampala because that's where the economic opportunities are. So labor moves to where it will get the best returns. So I think the issue is for us to grow the economy, and I hope the people in NDPs and PDMs are working in these areas. But of course, there's a silver lining to this matter. We have always battled with land fragmentation in villages and wondered how to do things. So one of the greatest opportunities for urbanization, even when people arrive the way they arrive, is they release land in the rural areas for more commercial farming, more productive commercial farming, as opposed to rural peasantry. But also the other thing they do is then they help government to concentrate services where people are. Because the reason, for example, rural areas don't have enough access to services is because they're sparsely distributed. So you're not going to put a health facility where people have decided to stay on ancestral lands. But if you put them in an urban center, you'd have people there. And by the way, there's someone called Silva Ositi who wrote a story about how the IDP camps in Gulu would actually be a nucleus for urbanization. Why? Because if you looked at even in a process of crisis like displacement and conflict, people moved to where health centers were, because then they became the nucleus for health service delivery. They also become the nucleus for trade. They can become the nucleus for so many economic activities. Currently, that is happening with the refugee camps. So, of course, the model couldn't be taken because it meant you are going to internalize in people's memories the issue of displacement, which was not a very good thing. But basically, when you concentrate people in cities, initially it will be a struggle, drainages, lack of services, crime, and so many things. But if it is well planned, then you'll have someone talked about, I think it was Dr. Mhwezi, building properly, planning where people should stay, what services will be there. So as the economy grows, those plans will be put in place. And basically, maybe finally to say, this is not just a Ugandan problem. SDG number 11 is about sustainable cities, because it's a global problem. 4.4 billion people in the world live in cities. But these cities don't have the same services for the population that have arrived. Of course, different countries at different stages. But of course, that's why even at the level of UNDP, they are talking about sustainable cities. How do you build inclusive cities? How do you build culturally modern cities? So that when people come, and maybe that's the other problem we have in Uganda, that cities are modeled on a Western model. So everyone must come and fit in. So if they don't fit in, there's a problem. Like, for example, if you move in every new city in Uganda today, one thing that you'll meet at the entrance of the city is garbage. What constitutes a lot of that garbage? Banana leaves, banana peelings. Of course, now the animals are eating the peelings. But you'll find banana leaves. It is largely organic waste. But why is there organic waste? Either the waste removal processes are slow, or if not, these cities are not planned for people, for the kind of food we eat and for our behaviors. That's why you'll construct a bathtub and someone makes it into a pot of making marua and all those kinds. So there are a lot of things to take place. But that's why I think it's important that UNDP insists on SDG number 11, on us making sustainable cities, livable cities, inclusive cities that are culturally appropriate for people, but are also modern, open spaces, and this is the other core we have with KCCA, all our green belts, all our play park, children's parks, not just maybe KCCA, even in Mbale and everywhere, all these have been developed. So the next problem you're going to have in these cities will be obesity amongst children, because they don't have where to play. Now, your children have compounds where they can run around. Many children in the city will not have compounds, but there are no green spaces they can go and play. So they will sit, they will eat, they will sit and watch TV. Before long, you'll have an obesity problem.
Professor, something that you have mentioned here twice, and I can pick on it, where now food seems to be coming from the urban areas
to the rural areas.
Yes. The pressures on the social services here. Yes. How do we match the movement to urban areas vis-a-vis the pressure on social services and this crisscrossing that food has now seemed to be upside down? It's now urban areas sending it to the villages.
Yes, thank you very much. I think what this calls for, I know someone talked about harmonizing development plans of the Greater Kampala, but I think we should go beyond that and talk about harmonizing rural development plans with urban development plans. So you have this urban, and maybe it's part of the fragmentation we have in this country when we come to every unit developing their own policies and plans. So you'll have the urban people, like the ones on this panel, heavily planning for how to make these cities modern. No one is paying attention, or they are not speaking to the rural development plans. For example, what's the nature of agriculture? What's the nature of infrastructure? What's the nature of value addition? Can we have small factories? So that some people keep there and come when we are ready to have them. That is not happening. So what is happening in rural areas? Because we disbanded extension and privatized extension services, many farmers are farming without extension. So if they go to District X and see someone is growing apples or maize or vanilla, you go to District Y, you want to do the same, and you're not sure whether the soil systems are the same, whether the environmental systems are the same, that becomes a problem. But also number two, rural communities, peasant agriculture is very vulnerable to environmental change. A lot of the mobility now of younger people is being driven by climate change. So they are not going to be patient enough to grow beans for 3 months and then harvest them. And maybe that is if they're lucky to harvest them. But many times you have a garden of tall maize, then it is dried out by drought or by floods. So the rural areas have become very precarious. It's no longer predictable what they are going to plant, what they are going to grow, and what they are going to harvest. But also the land holdings have become small because you are again having the invasion of urban, big commercial projects coming into the rural areas. So at the end of the day, the rural areas are slowly becoming unable to be the food basket that they were meant to be. And food is having to come from the urban. But and also the other thing is that the younger people in the rural areas are not farming. If you go to and walk through those gardens in the morning when farming is taking place, it's largely elderly people. If you're going to find younger people, you're going to find them in quick fix things like rice growing and border riding. And in the evening, they'll be playing pool. So you're not going to find them saying, okay, let's grow this, let's grow bananas, let's grow the other, except if they are sure it's going to give them cash very fast. So you have a younger population, which is not farming, it is laying in the trading centers. You have the elderly people are the ones who are farming, but no one is really talking about how do we make farming viable. So as long as rural areas are going and their farming systems are going to become unpredictable, younger people are going to move into the cities. Remember, you have educated them, you have also made them healthy, you have immunized them against infant mortality and under 5 mortality and all those things. So they are going to live longer. But also number two, you have extended electricity. So whether it's electricity, umeme or solar, they are watching TV, they are seeing how life is lived in Kampala. They're not going to stay there. They're going to come. So we need to plan for them.
Let me read some feedback and so that we can be able to interrogate it even further. Hello, Timothy. Can the acting spokesperson of KCCA explain the circumstances under which money was borrowed for Kampala roads, but up to date you are unable to utilize it to change the status of the potholes? This is John Bosco from Ajumani. Yes, another one to steal Daniel. Thank you, Timothy, for the show. Daniel should be honest and tell us if he would visit any other health center under KCCA or allow a member of his family to go there. These winning accolades from the Ministry of Health is no consolation. A person with one eye in a tribe of blind is automatically declared king. Benjamin Kampala. Very nice analogy there, interesting. Samuel, a political geographical student of Dr. Derrick in Makerere, says, thank you, Timothy, for the show, and your guests are distinguished. It's a wonderful discussion. It's really worth engaging. I wish that Dr. Muhwezi, in particular, for the critical views and insights of the subject matter. However, he's talking about how people keep on migrating from other cities to Kampala and pointing out the key reasons to why there are imaginary opportunities for them. They believe in Kampala, yet they are not the reality. Can't a study be conducted on the imaginary opportunities such that the efforts that are created are reality and are put into action? Okay. Finally, before we take a break, Timothy, please inform Brian that his permeable premise of a scapegoat fallacy and the mindset of assuming opportunities is reserved for Kampala is only a GMO youth who have been born and bred in Kampala, hence lacking the comparative advantage of the spectrum of the potential opportunities in the rural setting. One of the recent success stories that has become the presidential speech is from the forums of Toro. This is Nyakana. Okay, so I'm going to give an opportunity. I think let's take a break so that we come back and Daniel and the mayor can be able to respond. Thank you for your messages. Keep them coming, even on our X handle there. Drop them, use the hashtag UBC behind the headlines. Let us know what you think. Or on YouTube, I'll be reading some of those messages immediately after this break.
Juko.
Yo.
What you go? Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Haven't you heard of the parish development model PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a poultry project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that.
Okay.
The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
UBC is the national public broadcaster. We educate, inform, entertain, and inspire our audiences. You can watch us on free-to-air channel 001, DSTV channel 282, GoTV channel 371, Star Times channel 201, Zuku TV channel 20, and Azam TV channel 350. Even when your subscription expires, you can still watch UBC for free on your pay TV platforms.
Come back from that quick commercial break here on Behind the Headlines. My name is Timothy Nyangweso. In the studio, I have Professor Sarah Sali, Daniel Muhumza, Dr. Derek Muhezi, and the mayor himself of Hoima City, Brian Kaboyo, and finally I have the commissioner himself, Pade Joseph Walter. And we're discussing everything about urbanization, especially looking at what happened towards the end of last week, the beginning of this week, to some people that went to Lubiji about urbanization and what should be happening there. We're also looking at the 14 cities that were earmarked to be able to benefit from this. This is about 6 years ago, $150 million. What's happening to the social services, and has anything changed for us to look at it? Our X handle is for you to drop your message there. Go to our X handle as UBC there, hashtag UBC behind the headlines, drop your message. We shall be getting to it in a short while, or the number below your screen, 0709 60 25 92. Let us know what you think. I will be getting to some of those messages. Daniel and the mayor have responses to make. Daniel, your responses before I get to the commissioner there.
Well,
money borrowed, not utilized.
The money borrowed. No, we are utilizing the money. And that is why you see a number of activities going on. Under the Kampala City Roads Rehabilitation Project, we have over 40 roads that we are working on. And these include the notorious ones like Salama Road, Sao Paulo Kagwa, Sentema, Kubiri is under JIC. That is signalizing junctions. These roads under the KCRRP, that is the City Roads Rehabilitation Project, it's a loan, or we better use the word grant, that is going to be here for about 3 years. That is 36 months, and we have already used 12 months. And we are progressing well. You will see these activities as you go on to those roads. So the money that we're utilizing is being used. And by the way, we have already completed, of the 36 months, there are roads that we have already completed. Kabega Road has been completed. Old Mubende has been completed. This has increased and improved mobility in those areas, as well as raised the value.
And let's get to
there.
I think the other one was talking about how deplorable your health centers are.
Did he say that?
Would you take your family?
Yes,
I didn't want to go there, but
I had my vaccination. I was among the first 13, the first people to get vaccinated in this country. And we had this vaccination in our health centers. Our ministers have had their vaccinations in these health centers. Our staff go to these health centers. We work, we deliver services in these health centers. We have a full client care out of the nursing, but the client care functionality is fully manned by KCCA. So yes, I would go, and every week, every month, I go into these health centers to see how they are operating. The executive director, if you have seen, has practically gone to even inspect the nurseries. We opened up a new nursery in Kisenyi, and the executive director goes there every month to see the functionality and how it operates.
Okay.
So yes, I trust, and I want you to trust, because even people from as far as Arua, Mbale, trust these health centers and come there. I urge you to trust them, and yes, we shall make them better and better each day, because that is our aspiration.
Or is it because they have worse facilities and yours seems to be the silver lining? Let me come to...
At least we are working on what we have.
But before Timothy,
yes.
I think we have also built a culture in this country where people tend to believe that all government facilities are not okay. And they have like pulled out, which I think may not necessarily be the case, as he's saying.
Thank you. Mayor, the question to you was really loaded, if I could find it here. And it says, please inform the mayor that the scapegoating, the fallacy there, the mindset of assuming opportunities reserved in Kampala, these are GMO youth, being born and bred in Kampala, hence lack comparative advantages of the spectrum of opportunities. So he was also talking about, you know, the success story has been in Toro. Are there any success stories in Hoima of young people there?
Definitely. What I would say, I've visited the Nyakana in Toro, and is doing a very amazing work on just 1 acre model. But also there are people in Hoima who are doing some good work. Just because the way you say that people tend not to know what is happening. And maybe sometimes, but already also in Hoima, when you look at the population, it's also growing not because people know their opportunities. Of course, people are doing good things. There are people who are innovative, are doing very great work and doing good work. So definitely that is there, but also supporting, because you see sometimes people just be on social media and they don't follow what is reality, what is on ground. Like when you look at the people, we have programs like how to help people in ghettos to make sure that they are productive. We're having actually being supported by Rotary and the microfinance to support the people in the ghetto youth to be productive, to help them get grants, to be skilled on a few things, how they can be able to sustain their lives. So we have people who are doing something and helping their communities. So I believe that we have the success stories, and it's all about people coming down and seeing, because people have only seen Nyakana. Of course, Nyakana has done great work, but we have people who are doing, and I, for one, also am trying to do something to make sure the young people don't see me say something, but also come and ground and see that we are being productive and doing something on a small scale of land, but also trying to earn something from there.
Commissioner, coming to you, something that Professor hinted on, land fragmentation, housing. Kampala, most of the city centers are developing slums. Housing is expensive. Even reading the report from Uganda Support Municipal Infrastructure Development Program there, they also talked about informal and substandard housing. Housing today seems to be going for a certain class of people. You'll find apartments erected in areas there. When you look at housing in this country, what do you think about it, and what are you doing about it?
Yes, what do I think about it? Certainly, that is one of the areas where we have not performed well, I must admit. And a lot more needs to be done in as far as housing is concerned. When you look at the aspect of housing, indeed you observed that the housing backlog now is at a tune of about 2.44 million. The challenge of land tenure, of course, you even saw some few houses being destroyed the other day. Those are challenges of land tenure. What is government doing in all of this? First of all, we have got a national housing policy that guides the aspect of housing development.
How do we come from policy to implementation?
Yeah, of course, you need a policy before you talk of implementation. The housing policy is quite new. We put it in place not long ago. And also, we are currently working on our slum upgrading strategy, so that the slums you are talking about can be dealt with. But the most important aspect of housing, the issue of affordability. Affordability has continued to be a challenge. The policy looks at the things to do with the taxation in relation to housing, the technology we are using in the provision of housing is prohibitive to massive housing provision. And then, of course, also when you look at the things to do with the housing finance, it is still a challenge. But the implementation of the policy, we are coming up with the implementation action plan. We are also working with the other development partners like the French Development Agency to look at the housing finance aspect. In addition to that, we also want to work with the academia, for instance, do more research on how we can improve in terms of housing. Then, of course, the major aspect in terms of social housing, that's where we really need to focus on. I believe for us here, we are catered for in terms of housing. The real common person on the ground there needs to be helped through various means. But government, through the implementation the policy is working on this. And then, of course, we are also working on other frameworks like the real estate law, so that the real estate dealers are managed or controlled in terms of quality, value for money, and then processes. The issues of land tenure. We are rolling out a number of land tenure sensitization programs so that people get to understand their rights in terms of ownership. I agree with you. Indeed, housing has remained a challenge, but also what we are also banking on as a government, we are in the process of getting back the National Housing Construction Company so that it gets back to government 100%, so that it performs the intended purpose. National Housing and Construction Corporation was actually put in place to support the housing development process of government. But remember, for long it has been in the private hands, and now we are getting it back to government, and certainly it will contribute to the housing stock in the country.
Commissioner, you sound like you're planting, yet the people who are waiting are seated on the table hungry. You're not even cooking, waiting to eat.
Mr. Tim,
Doctor, let me come to you. Because the need is growing daily. If the census numbers come out and say what I had either Doctor or Daniel say, between 50 and 52, that means the margin there is growing. The number of slums are growing. And also when you take pictures of places like Naguru, where people were removed, but the apartments that are erecting are not for an ordinary person. What happens to low-cost housing? Is there an idea like that? We seem like we are really cooking, researching, but the population boom is really growing so fast. How do we cover that gap?
Yeah, that gap mainly can be covered through allocation of resources directly into housing. And those are the things government is trying to look at how to handle together with the other stakeholders. You have to start from somewhere. You have to start from somewhere. We implemented, for instance, the Namongo housing project. It provided some housing, although it also had its own issues. I think Mr. Mwezi here was in one or the other involved in it. But I agree with you, housing is a challenge, and the government, apart from being an enabler, because the policy provides that the government enables. Actually, the policy provides that a provision for housing falls under individual households, but I believe we need to change that narrative so that we move into massive housing development to support the poor.
And finally, before I get to the mayor, something the professor said, land. Professor has a property, I have a property next to her. She sells the property at 50 million shillings. Now, her 50 million shillings is a benchmark of me selling my property. Where is government's place in regulation here? I know in Kenya, across they have a board. What have you benchmarked on? What is the policy there? What is government doing about this? Because you're either being robbed or being sold air, or there's nothing. So what is government's place here in regulation, in enabling housing?
Yeah, that is one of the things that we are looking at in this real estate bill. It is going to control the aspect of even prices. We want to have all land dealers registered. You cannot wake up overnight to sell. You should actually sell through a registered entity or individual. Some of those measures actually will control the aspect of land prices. The real estate bill, we are at advanced stages. Very soon we should be able to buy it.
I like the part of biting. Dr. Mwezi, you had the comment before I come back to the mayor.
I wanted to comment. I think he has even talked about it. But if you look at the 2.4 million deficit you are talking about, it is falling under a certain category, a certain low category. And as Commissioner said, unless government comes out strongly to promote social housing and housing cooperatives, it will be so hard for us to reduce that deficit. Because so long as this economy is completely a liberal economy, the provision of housing will always be for medium and above. No one will, from the economic point of view, very few people will be looking at the what? At the low category. That low category can only be handled if government comes out strongly to support what he has talked about, social housing, which requires for a change in the policy, and whole housing cooperatives.
Thank you very much. Mayor, let me come to you. Something that was discussed here, and for you it's the economics that I would like to talk about. I've been to Mbara, I've been to Gulu, but even when you look at them, the city center is where the business is. When you come to Mbara, the high street is where the business is. When you move out to different areas within Mbara, everyone comes to Mbara for business, the city center, and goes back out. When we look at rent, when we look at economic viability, how do we make these cities economic hubs? And how do we choose what economic hub?
Thank you, Timothy. One of the things is we are trying to ask the Ministry of Lands is the USMID program we have been running, which is ending, has been centered on the business district. What we want is to make it to grow beyond the center, the CBD, to make sure that we give this infrastructure to, because when you look at all the cities, the new cities, they were added on sub-counties or from the district, and which were a bit rural, which can be properly planned for. And that's why we want to make sure in the phase which is coming in, how do we make sure, first of all, this planning is well implemented. Even if you're not going to do a good tarmac road, can we do a good Maram road which is wide enough? Because we engage people, because it's a virgin place, and people give us space. But the budget can't help us, can't support us to make sure that we open up these spaces, to make sure that they are well planned with the road network. So we are trying to ask the ministry, and I think they have a program which they are trying to look at. Maybe they will see that it is important to make sure at least we can, because when you look at our budget, when you look at a road fund and other monies which come in, they come to a very limited and yet constrained, and so much demand from the community, and expectation is very high. So what we expect is we need to stretch out from the CBD. When you look at as a city, like for example in Hoima, we have, as a council, we have said no, let's give land to government, because people tend to come to follow where government offices are. So we have said, let's government offices which are coming in the region, if they ask us for land, which I know is still a very limited resource we have, but we still need to grow these areas. We say, let's allocate them space out of the CBD, so that people come, the government builds there, like now we have given like a migration, 5 kilometers from the CBD. People will go there because they need that service. They've been coming to Kampala for it. Equally, we are looking at the High Court and everything. So we want to send them out of the CBD, but we come to the Ministry of Lands and say, as we're growing our cities, and these areas are still virgin, can we stretch from the CBD to outside so that the city grows evenly and they not be concentrated within, because people want to stay within, because they look at, that's why I say people come into our cities, they look at the infrastructure within the CBD. Thanks to the USMID program, we are much better than Kampala. Yeah, but we can't say that that is enough, because people come and stay around the CBD. But if we are trying to say we will need to stretch to make sure that we grow the other areas and also be economically viable, we must make sure this program tends to stretch beyond the CBD and people follow where infrastructure is better. People can open shops where they don't have dust. People can, even when they go there, our revenue also grows. The property rates also grow, and we provide more services. So it is very important that we look at how we can grow beyond this small CBD to outside, to the other areas which are next to the CBD within the cities.
What economic activity would make Hoima City or Hoima an economic hub? What is that is, let's put the oil aside, because we don't know, 25, 35 years.
Yeah.
What is it that could make it viable, that it is sustaining? Because one of the things that I like to look at is Entebbe. It almost seems like it has schools, social services, education, self-sustaining. I have friends who don't cross from there to come to Kampala at all. So what can make Hoima that focal point that people are not crossing to come to Kampala, but it is within Hoima or its exterior districts?
First of all, I will tell you that besides the oil, because the oil is just 25 years or 30 when you look at it, but Hoima is also a center like for Bunyoro. When you look at the business, it's a central city or district, the city for the entire Bunyoro. That means people can connect from Bulisa, from Kakumiro, from Kagadi, whatever, to come in this center. So once we have people who come even to trade from within the city and go back where they are. But also besides the oil and other activities, we have also people look at the agriculture, because we are having factories in the neighborhood where people are doing some farming, and when they come, they need to come back. So the service industries also are growing within the city. When you look at the service of the hotels, the guest house, and other restaurants, actually people are migrating from Masindi, coming to Hoima City. Business people are migrating from Masindi, also coming into the city and look at opportunities. So also besides the oil, we have the tourism, because you see Hoima as a city is a center of Bunyoro and the sitting of the kingdom. That's why the palace, when you look at the kingdom, parliament and everything. Actually, I had an opportunity to move to Thailand. The oil in Thailand is tourism. People come to look at this ancient kingdom in Thailand and look at the Buddha, the golden Buddha, the temples. And what I saw, they're somehow related to our kingdom and what we have in place. So we can grow even within our tourism within the city, because we have so many sites within the city which can attract tourism. And besides, that's why you see the airport, besides the oil activity, it's looking at the bigger picture of tourism within the entire region.
Thank you very much. Doctor, coming to you, countries like Kenya have really pushed out the development of the states, and you see the governors take on the mantle to have that running. We also saw that Tanzania moved infrastructure and development to a certain area, and the population gravitated towards it. When you look at our country, how can we make this right? That fits us.
Surprisingly, Timothy, even here, changes are taking place. A few years ago, when a commissioner was with me at the university, I think 50% of Uganda's population was in Kampala, almost. But that figure has tremendously changed, which means that, yes, Kampala is still attracting people, but these cities that we are talking about have also started attracting people. Mbale is attracting people, Mbarara is attracting people, Guru is attracting people, Arua is attracting people, and that has changed the equation. Kampala is no longer the real, true prime city. These other cities are also taking over. But you have also raised something very powerful, which I think we are not yet there. And that is, what is that thing that Jinja or Mbale or Hoima or Mbarara, what is the engine of growth for a given city? Because it is that engine of growth that will attract people. It is that engine of growth that the city should promote for it to be what it is. Take an example. Government will say, Mbale, you are a regional city. But does Mbale know why they are a regional city? Government will say, Arua, you are a regional city. But does Arua know what it takes to be a regional city? Government will say, Hoima, you are an oil city. But is oil anywhere in Hoima? Or there are certain things Hoima is supposed to do to qualify to be called an oil city. The same applies to others, for tourism city, and so on and so forth. Recently, I was in Jinja. I looked at their motto. The motto of Jinja city is that River Nile is their wealth. Kiira Bwebugaga. So I asked them a question. Is there any evidence in Jinja to show that you are taking River Nile as your wealth? And they were not giving me the right answers. And that's why I think the challenge is that, yes, the cities are there, but if it is Masaka, what exactly is Masaka? How is Masaka different from Mbarara? What makes this Mbarara? And so on and so forth. If we address that for the leadership of the cities to know why, for example, Moroto is going to be a mineral city, then we should be able to make a difference as far as this country is concerned.
Professor, the other thing is housing. When you move around, even something that the Commission has mentioned, very sad incidents happening end of last week, early this week. Houses broken, people have been there. I was looking at some of the documents, 30, 40 years, and they have been paying busulu to some people. How do we solve the equation of housing, especially on the bottom line? Because no one has ever asked the question of where the people who are removed from Naguru, where did they go? The ones that have been moved from Rubiji, where are they going? An old lady that is about 80, Ruth, where is she going? How do we answer that question of housing, especially in the urban areas?
Well, I said some time back that there are two routes one can take. One is government to run away from the enabling environment and come out strongly to inject money into housing for that category of people, what we indeed would call social housing. So government comes out strongly as like the way it injects money into agriculture, into the army, into health, it injects money into housing for that category of people. The other alternative is to mobilize these communities. It requires a lot of sensitization into what we call housing cooperatives. So the way we have circles, we have like housing circles, where the communities are able, through those cooperatives, to start constructing their own houses, buy land through a cooperative framework, and they're able to evolve that into, into housing units. It has worked in other countries, and I believe it can work here. Or a combination of both.
One time I was just trying to say, you see, the way Commissioner said the government must come and support. I was trying to tell people if they buy land in a bulk as a community and they are supported, that can be okay. But now, with the free kind of the way we are, and without the human resource, you find someone is buying even a plot of 50 by 50. And these are the people where we get challenges when we want to construct a road, and they can't give you even an inch, a meter, because someone constructs the house and the entire plot he has bought. So we need to have the way we control these things to make sure that we avoid the slums.
And you talk about housing and say circles and all these things, good things there. But we have recently had taxes that are going to start 1st July on cement and all these. So really, isn't that self-defeating
of
for
course
housing?
That's self-defeating as far as even the existing policy is concerned. Because if you say I'm creating an enabling environment for me as Mwezi or Timothy to construct his or her own house, the enabling part of the government, for example, would be to reduce taxes on building materials. So if you reduce taxes on building materials, you are enabling the people, you are enabling the communities to be able to construct their houses. But if you increase the taxes, you are already cutting off a certain group of people who the deficit we are talking about falls under their category.
Thank you very much. Let me come to you, Daniel. And amazing work KCCA is doing, especially signalizing most of the parts that we're seeing in Kampala, trying to manage, even with the narrow roads, on how traffic flows and all these things. But also credit to you for the roads you have made and also the patching that has been made. But what informs the infrastructure direction you're taking? What informs the social services that you're providing? And how are you thinking out of the box? Tarmac, all we're thinking about is tarmac. Are there any other innovations? I'm glad we have Professor and Doctor here. Other innovations that are cost efficient, but give us durable roads?
Well, what informs us is need and numbers. Need and numbers, in a sense. If there is a congested area or an area that has potentially caused a traffic menace, that creates a need. And we have to resolve it with either material or human presence or technology. For example, we have a challenge of traffic along Bombo Road, feeding into Wandegea, into Kubiri. Then it comes back onto the Farewell Home. I will not use the other word. Farewell Home, which we usually call mortuary roundabout, and at Mulago, where Binaisa Road terminates. Then it feeds into the yard and the Yusuf Rule. Now, then that very traffic comes up to Renzori near State House. So in the evenings, you'll find vehicles rammed in there, and you'll need manpower to guide, and this manpower is not coordinating. So what do? We improve the road network there and deploy technology. That is the signalized junctions. So the need is being addressed by technology and the number of vehicles or road users in those particular areas. Improvements in the way we do things. Before, we would construct a road, the paved area, different from the drainage, different from the lighting. Then in the morning, a utility company comes up and cuts through, cuts through the road. But if you look at the contracts that we are signing off now, the roads that we are constructing, it's a comprehensive package. We have the paved area, we have the drainage under the walkway, or above the drainage we put a walkway, Then we also provide for street lighting, and we make provisions for utilities. If it is a data company, it can pass its cable.
What service ducts?
We have service ducts at intervals crossing the infrastructure. So it would mean that over the years, the challenge of cutting through roads has been dealt with. Then we implore the contractors to use local and indigenous labor. In this way, our youth are put to work.
So you're creating opportunities.
We are creating opportunities for the youth and engaging them within the city. There has been a plan of reskilling and retooling the youth in the communities. If you go to all the areas within the divisions, because we are working, one of the biggest challenges we have had that has impacted on our roads heavily has been the drainage. So if you go into the communities in Rubaga, if you go into Kawempe, Nakawa, and Makindi, the community secondary drains are being worked on by youth in there, within the parishes. So once a company gets a contract, it uses the youth in there. Even in our desilting campaigns, because we desilt, we drench, and we repair drainages, we have gotten youth from the communities to desilt, to repair. We have community circles, we have those that have organized themselves, like the Seven Hills circle, to make sure that amongst them, we have people that are working for the city, other than having people coming from out of Kampala. That makes it cheaper, and that also engages the communities, and we have money coming into the communities and exponentially adding value, because they will eat food at those sites.
And even ownership.
They will own the works, and they will protect the drains. 3 years ago, we had street lights being vandalized and being stolen. In fact, here at UBC, we had some lights that had been vandalized. But with continuous engagement of the communities, the people who were coming to steal lights along these streets were reported by the guards who are in these premises at night. Along Kulambiro Ring Road, the Kulambiro community has worked out a way of ensuring these street lights are protected by themselves, who have shops along the stretch.
Actually, I can also supplement. When the phase which started for Gusmed, people were vandalizing these lights, but the continuous engagement, even people can call me even in the night. Someone, mayor, someone is trying to vandalize, please call police and come and rescue for us. Maybe we have grabbed someone trying to climb up the solar lights to steal them. So the proactive and engaging is also trying to help.
So proactively, people are protecting, even those who knock them. We have people who take something in the night.
Stronger than water.
Stronger than water. and they crash into these lights. The communities report them, and we apprehend them. But most importantly, we have now smart city ambassadors. Now, we have gone into the communities and implored them and taught them the need for sanitation, the need for greening, the need for paving, and the need for painting. So these are part of the community. We have over 800 of them now
Okay. Just staying with you, Daniel, before I come to Professor here. There are taxes that are levied by KCCA.
Yes.
Now we're looking at Kampala metropolitan, here
Yes.
Kampala. What are you doing to support the economic viability of Kampala? Because you have Chikubu, that is the hub.
Yes.
And you correctly said it, 65% of the GDP is from
Yes.
here. You have heavy taxes. You're enforcing, chasing people who are selling PDM things off the roads. I have some clips there. PDM gives them money, they are making chips, your enforcers are getting. So how are you supporting the economic viability of Kampala?
Now, we don't chase
Do you
people
want me to show
from
you?
Kampala. We ensure trade order is achieved in the city.
Daniel, that's just semantics.
No.
Good English.
We ensure trade order.
Okay,
in the
how are
city.
you collaborating
And
with
people-
government entities
Yes.
to ensure that Timothy, who received 1 million from PDM, and the business idea I have is chips. I am working next to Makerere University. The viability is that young people want to eat cheap food so that they have some money there. And tomorrow your enforcers are coming, my pan is taken, everything is taken, but I still have to pay that money back. And KCCA has just taken, either thrown me in jail or I am paying a fine. How do you work together
Now-
to ensure that this, you're still getting money from me, and I'm also thriving, my children are going to school?
Now, under the PDM, for example, here is the linkage. Kampala has dispersed about 9.2 billion. But we have also skilled people in producing, say, slippers, artifacts, and various services. We have provided space, because once these are produced, we will not want to have the slippers on the road. We have provided space in various markets for free. For free. If you are in Central Division, Usafi Market has gone back to government entirely and run by KCCA. We have supported Usafi Market by enabling Usafi Park to operate close to the market, such that if someone is coming from a matatu, a taxi, has access to the market. Now, whoever is in Usafi Market does not pay a penny in rent to KCCA. And we collect the garbage there, we provide the utilities like water in there for free. That is supporting PDM. We have created other markets and partnered with the private sector. We have Gwanda next to the stadium, Nachivubo Stadium. We have created a market there. We have markets in every division, and our aspiration is to have at least 2 completely built markets in every division. We are opening up Busega. So these spaces, work spaces, are made to accommodate people who would otherwise have gone onto the streets. But also, if it comes to food, we want people to have food in hygienic places. That is why we have provided for those that can come together, cooperate, the cooperative model, youth that come together and have booths, movable booths, mobile booths. I think you have seen them. It comes, sells, and they go away. Instead of coming at Bank of Uganda and start roasting meat in front of Bank of Uganda. One, the meat is unhealthy because of the traffic and the contamination to that food. But most of all, in the teaching of how to utilize the parish development model money, the money from the youth livelihood program, we teach them compliance to the law of the city and other
government jurisdictions. One is trading in the right place.
Okay. Daniel, allow me bring in Professor.
There's time to just compliment on, since it's from cases.
I'm going to come to you as we give parting shots. Professor, when I hear all these very beautiful ideas, but you mentioned land fragmentation, and sometimes I'm really disturbed with the 4-acre model, with especially the population growth and the way we're fragmenting land for everyone to have a piece, either to build a house or do some economic activity on it. How do we make sure that these government programs are applicable in a scenario of the different areas there? How can that work?
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, I think land fragmentation is largely a rural affair, and the 4-acre model is largely a rural affair. And I think some people are even lucky to be talking about 4 acres. In some places, people have half an acre if you're very lucky. Or sometimes you don't have anything. So how do we make government programs work? As I said earlier, if cities had opportunities for people, if industrialization was taking place, if GDP growth was taking place, people would move, release the land for more viable agricultural enterprises. But as I said, the rural planning is not speaking to the urban planning, because one is local government, another one I think is urban authorities. So that creates a problem, and it creates a challenge. So at the end of the day, there is no, while a few youth are moving, and we're seeing that as a problem, there are no viable ventures in those places. Like I've always said here, and the other time I know we're being corrected that production occurs where the market is nearest. But when migration was limited or better managed in the past, it was because those areas had viable ventures. They had, for example, I think Lira had spinning mills, Sorota, I don't know, had the airstrip, but also meat packers. Mbale had ATM, the sawmills and everything. So people went to places, those Kilembe mines in Kasese, people went to those places. But right now there's nothing. It is agriculture in even a non-supported way, because there's no professional extension. So people are gambling. So whether we are talking about 4-acre or 10-acre or 1 acre, there seems to be no direction in terms of this is the land use, this is the land tenure in this system, and things like that. And of course, there's something you asked previously on how to make, for example, Hoima City very viable. I know, I sometimes think, and I'll be forgiven to think so, that the people are operating differently from the planners. You know, human beings by nature are economic agents, and they're going to make economic decisions. Now, the planners have read urban planning, and they are very excellent at urban planning, and most of them tend to be engineers. Our cities historically originate in the colonial system. And what we have done thereafter has been a continuation of that. That's why migration is seen as a problem. That's why villagers coming into the city is problematized. Poor people being in Lubiji is problematized. People selling on the streets is problematized. If you go to Mexico City, we actually eat food off the street on frying pans. If you go to Thailand, you'll eat food off the street. So people, we eat off the streets in those places, and we haven't picked salmonella or anything like that. But you see, it seems like, and there's someone who talks about the politics of the governed and how post-colonial entities are more concerned about governing people and controlling them, other than providing for them and integrating their systems into national development. So we continue to have cities running on Western models. New York, we want to be New York, we want to be London, we want to be everything. Why don't we look east and how they have developed their cities to factor in the people? And then when that is the issue, we shall have an urban planner who just doesn't say, okay, Bunyoro is a gateway to the west and that, but also to say what happens in Bunyoro. I know we have oil, maybe they produce, I don't know what they produce agriculturally, but we have the kingdom. Like he said, how do we make the kingdom part of Bunyoro development plan, Hoima development plan, okay? And you know, when we've traveled to these places for research, we actually try to visit these palaces. They are locked. because the palaces have certain holy things, and you don't just move there. So the closest you can go to Fort, and I've tried to go to Fort Portal Palace, is the gate. So you have to stand down and take a selfie with the palace in to show Kampala people you reached the palace. So those places are also not very inviting. But if the urban authorities would go and talk with the palace people and say the tourist issue here is this, okay? You go to Mbale, for example, I know they're agriculturalists, but one of the tourist things they have once in 2 years is the Imbalu ceremony. So towards August, you're going to see them this year. A lot of things organized because people are going to, the Bagis will be coming in from Bunyoro, the ones who migrated there, the ones from Chenjojo, the ones from Kenya, the ones from where? Kayunga, and all over the place. And it has now been elevated to a level of a national celebration or something like that. But then that drives certain things. There's consumption of goods and services, and that occurs. In Gulu, in addition to it just being a gateway to the north, it also conducts food festivals. So we know that the Acholis, in a particular time of the year, they are going to have the cultural food festivals. Unfortunately, our drive for cities, districts, and municipalities has been to raise money. We don't think about how do we support the things within those areas that we can grow. So whoever is coming on board as LOC5, largely the political class there, is coming on board to raise money. And then they will go ahead to tax things beyond even what Kampala would have taxed them. So if someone brought fertilizer or is doing some activity that may have already attracted VAT elsewhere, the local, like if you bought things from Kampala like cement, and you're going to sell it in Mukono or you're going to sell it to Wakiso, Wakiso will also want to tax their VAT because you're operating in their area. But this is a distance of around how many minutes if there was no traffic jam. So I think the issue is the driver for creating the lower level urban authorities, the clamor. First of all, you have the historical problem of colonialism and the exclusion of the African from cities. So even the urban planners who continue on the colonial mode. So everyone not fitting this perfect fit of a Western city is a problem and has to be moved. You're not factored in the plans. And that goes to what you talked about housing. I know the National Housing Plan is about increasing housing units 60,000 per year to 200,000 per year, but on practice really it hasn't worked. So apart from excluding people, then the second driver of cities today and towns is raising revenue so that we can also be like the Kampala people. And when you go to districts, you hear this story. You see, our colleagues in Kampala are taxing for this, our colleagues in Kampala are making, and you ask them, have you considered the ecosystem in which your city is located? No, you say our colleagues in Kampala. So it looks more like a money affair. And of course that creates a So if we are to talk about the 4-acre model, well, it is very much of a rural affair. But if we are to come to the issue of land and land management in the city, and again on the theme of exclusion, it's really planned for big-time people with lots of money. Now, if you go back to history, to the people who are in Lubija and the rest, of course, we know that these cities came up as administrative centers. Unfortunately, Kampala was located in a place where there are so many wetlands. Why people are in the wetlands? And by the way, the wetland settlement is not even a 50-year affair in this country. It is because that's the cheapest land they can find. And sometimes it has not just been the old people. We've seen people, even at the time we graduated, who couldn't go back to places far away where they came from. You have come from a very far district, you're the first rich Kampala, opportunities are in Kampala. You're not going to go home, you have graduated. And you don't have a relative on whose floor in the sitting room you can sleep. Where did many of these people go? When they did small research projects, they afforded land in the swamps, around the Tula area and whatever. And they'll tell you it's the cheapest land. You put 2 rooms, 1 room you convert it into a shop for rent, the other room you sleep in. And then you went expanding. And interestingly, many of them actually graduated from there and went to places like Muyengan. So it is a transit spot. People who want to do investment, you know, they are the big timers who are putting up apartments. But the small timers know that you actually don't even need to own the land. But if there's a muzigo being sold in the ghetto, you buy it, you buy a second one, you buy a third, you improve. So previously they were attracting 100,000 per month. you upgrade it to a level of 200,000. And the people making these decisions are younger people. So you have the urban planners going this direction, the economic agents in the population are going that direction. The day they will meet, we shall actually be far. What does it take them to meet? I think we need to decolonize the way we understand urban planning. Our planners need to stop living in New York and London and come back and say, who is the Ugandan we are planning for?
Okay.
The Ugandan we are planning for has these factors. And then these are the things. For example, the high cost of construction materials. How do we make this cheaper? And I imagine the people like Dr. Muhwezi have ideas on how this can be. Because a few years ago, in the College of Engineering and Design and Technology in Makerere Sedat, they came up with it was supposed to be a low-cost brick, but anyway, it was never scaled up. But this was a brick being made out of waste material, plastics. It is a very strong brick. It was a student's project under Professor Msazi, he died. It was a project, what we call problem-based learning. So they used that, and it was supposed to be piloted in Katanga, but they never received the money to do that. But what would you do if you rolled out this low-cost brick? You would, one, lower the cost of construction, but number two, you'd resolve the problem of waste management in this city, at least on the side of plastics. So what we need is to also bring the universities centrally into this equation and ask, what can you offer? Universities have ideas, but as I said, again, universities are on one plane, the planners are on, and policymakers are on another plane, the population is on another plane. But if we can bring this together and put investments there, solutions exist.
Thank you, Professor. Let me read some feedback so that I give each of you a minute for parting shots. Good evening, Timothy. Thank you for the program. It's unfortunate we have duty bearers like the commissioner and the mayor who are not on top of their game. For instance, he gives an example of Hoima, which has initially part of the project, yet they borrowed money. But even then, Hoima market construction has stalled until it is attracted until it attracted the intervention of the president. Take another example of Mbarara, where they have a storied building in the middle of the road, right at the major entry of central business area near the Ramahembe roundabout. The commissioner confessed that they are only starting to do studies about the goals facilitated after the project. Andrew from Kisoro. Okay, thank you, Andrew. William from Soroti City, I appreciate the panelists and what they're saying. One of the major challenges that my committee, Area Land Committee, is inadequate in physical planning. And I am happy the panelists have mentioned it. Could the commissioner give light on what the ministry has planned for very crucial development initiatives? I chair the Land Committee. Thank you very much. Thank you. Good evening, Timothy. This is Semanda Francis from Fort Poto. The major problem that affects urban areas in Uganda are limited finances, poor planning, non-implementation of the law, politicians using their positions to fight personal wars. Okay. At Kwase Bruce, good evening. Thank you for the show. We always have a good plan as Uganda, but implementation becomes a menace. Okay. Michael Polot from Palisa, Uganda is ready for urban development. One, we do not want to plan for the towns we have, only the revenue which is also lost in corruption. This is so-called mayors even do not understand what to do and they have no power because of corruption. Okay, finally, this is from Hoima City. Great discussion. Please help declare why the local communities sometimes reject the development and well supported by the big guys in power. See the main road from the police station, it should be opened to people and they refuse them and they put buildings. The buildings are demolished and you have to support them. Come in this road at around 6 p.m. onwards. The city is a mess. Not living alone, the market is always busy and the market of the city to Arua in such areas as Arua. This is Aguzibwe Henry. Thank you very much. A lot of messages, but we'll leave it at that. I will turn to my panelists for a minute each of parting shots. I'll start with Professor, Daniel, Dr. Muhwezi, the Mayor, and finally the Commissioner. Professor.
Thank you very much. I would like to say, first of all, the issue of poor housing in cities is not just a Ugandan phenomenon. Abroad, actually, many people are homeless. Many people live out of their car boots. But even when they do that, there is a provision for them. The other thing I would like to emphasize is if we have good urban planning, which reads the times, it should help people plan. For example, there are simple things. If you went to Mbarara on a Friday, and God forbid you did not book your accommodation, you will not find anywhere to sleep which is decent. Why? Because entertainment hotspots like Vegas are good at attracting issues. And so there's a lot that is happening in these cities. So the people are trying their level best, making economic choices within the limited economy they have.
Okay.
So what we need is the planners to speak to that. And finally, to KCCA, please reduce our time to work. Our workplaces have biometric machines which clock time in and time out. So if we are asked why we arrived 5 hours late for this month, we are going to say KCCA is to blame. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Daniel, your 1 minute.
In that 1 minute, KCCA is implementing a smart city campaign that is leveraging on infrastructure to reduce the time you spend in the job and you have more time at work. We are focused, in doing that, we are focused on people well-being, and to achieve that we are leveraging on technology. But in this, we want more livable and more inclusive urban centers,
okay,
or a more inclusive and livable city. And we are saying, let us manage or handle our waste responsibly. Let us pave and green. Let us clean and paint our environment.
Thank you very much. Dr. Muhwezi, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Urban development everywhere in the world acts as an engine of development. Are there challenges? Yes. There will always be challenges as far as the urbanization process is concerned. And as Professor has been saying, it's not just a Ugandan affair, but it's an affair everywhere, that there will always be challenges. And I also believe, through these discussions, that the opportunities are there. We need to tap into these opportunities to keep on addressing these challenges one by one. And I believe that over time we are going to reach where other people have reached.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Mayor Brian.
Thank you, Timothy. I want to appreciate the professor, as she has really brought out the issue where Uganda some people think that urban centers or cities should be like New York, and they forget that we are in Uganda. And one of the, what a good city must be inclusive. Must be inclusive, safe, and accommodative. So that's why I say, she ably said that people eat food from the streets. That's why as Hoima City we said, no, can we accommodate? First of all, when you look at the USMID program, has provided lights. We have given lights to our people to boost the night economy. Because we want the person to eat the cheap food. That's why us as a city, we say we don't chase, but we gazette areas. Because all over, recently I was in Dubai and I was buying things on the street. The other time I was in China and I was literally buying certain things, even food on the street. So we must make sure we believe, because first of all, we have the young population,
okay,
and we must know what employs them. Because all of them can't be in offices like the professors and the rest. But you must look at, one of the most employing is the mobile money and the food vending in the night. So you must make sure you think about these young people who are going to be out there, who are unemployed, but they need to survive. So the city must be very inclusive and provide space so that we can accommodate and make sure people have a living. Otherwise, people may fail to have a night, may not have security, because people who don't have money, they may not make you Timothy and the rest have peace in their cities.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Lastly, Commissioner.
Yes, thank you, Timothy. Urbanization is here to stay. It's just the beginning, because we are only 27%. I'm sure by the time we reach 70%, if we do not manage it now, we shall have a big problem. We have an opportunity to do planning. We have an opportunity to involve everybody. That's why we have got the urban forums. But to address the challenges of urbanization, government has put in place a number of interventions. We have talked about the USUMID. We began with the 14 municipalities who are cities now. We expanded, we brought in more 8. Now in the next phase, if all goes well, we want to cover all of the municipalities and all of the cities. But the most important thing, the infrastructure we are putting in place, construction of infrastructure is not enough. But we must make sure we utilize this infrastructure well to transform communities. We must make sure we maintain this infrastructure, Bwana Mayor, so that this infrastructure can actually last and serve the communities as expected. Now, last but not least, when it comes to aspects of planning, a lot has been said. Planning is one thing, then implementation is the other. People watching should be responsible. They should take personal responsibility. Okay. Why do you build on a road? That's the question. Now, when it comes to development of these roads, it becomes a problem.
Challenge.
It becomes a challenge. Otherwise, thank you for hosting us. Thank you, viewers, for your time. We shall always be coming to discuss this very important subject. Urbanization actually is a strategy for development.
Thank you. This last message came through. Now, good evening, Timothy. I like the way Professor Sarah analyzes issues. Godfrey from Bugwere District. I had to read that one. Gentlemen and lady, thank you very much for coming through. The production team that has made today possible are the ones on the camera, and the ones also are trying to make sure that we are clear and you get us loud and clear. Thank you very much. We'll end it with this quote. Knowledge isn't free. You have to pay attention. Good morning.
Juko.
Yo.
Wachikuwa. Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Haven't you heard of the parish development model, PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a portrait project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
UBC is the national public broadcaster. We educate, inform, entertain, and inspire our audiences. You can watch us on free-to-air channel 001, DSTV channel 282, GoTV channel 371, Star Times channel 201, Zuku TV channel 20, and Azam TV channel